Unsufferable's freshness that lasts all day long. There it again. It's like music to your ears, or more like music to your nose. That freshness is irresistible. Let's get a Downy Unsufferable's bottle shake. And now a sniff solo. Nice. Get 6 times longer lasting freshness plus odor protection with Downy Unstoppable in Wash Scenties.
Whoa, it's you, the Capital One Bank guy.
That's what they call me.
Mind if I get a selfie?
Yeah, sure thing. Say no fees or minimums on your Capital One checking account.
Wow, that's a keeper. So, where are you heading?
I'm off to spread the good news that Capital One helps people keep more money in their wallet with no overdraft fees.
Oh, you're the best Capital One Bank guy.
Hey, mind if I get a selfie?
Sure.
Say, Capital One, what's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/bank for details. Capital One and A member FDIC.
Hey, football fans, you want the real deal, the raw, unfiltered truth about everything going down in the NFL? Join Mark Schlereth, 3-time Super Bowl champ, on the Stinkin' Truth podcast. He's breaking it all down for you. No punches pulled. From the game-changing moments that won or lost a game to the player evaluations, this is analysis you won't hear anywhere else. Mark's got you covered, so strap in and get ready for the ride, because this isn't your average football podcast. Follow the Stinkin' Truth in the free Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Rick Julius, a partner at Cordell & Cordell. For over 3 decades, Cordell & Cordell has been on the front lines of family law. Divorce is more than just a legal process. It's a life-changing event that can impact your future, finances, and your relationship with your children. You've worked hard to build a life that you're proud of, and you deserve a legal partner who will work just as hard to protect it. 716-422 all zeros, 100 Corporate Parkway, Suite 320, Amherst, New York, 14226. Online at CordellCordell.com.
Sports Radio 550 WGR Buffalo. WKSE HD2 Niagara Falls, Buffalo, 98.5 FM.
An Odyssey Sports Station.
Charlie, this is the way I'm hitting now. Getting in the kitchen, and you're getting it.
This is One Bills Live,
Presented by
Comfort Health.
Beat Down. Good evening, Bills Mafia. Great to have you with us for yet another primetime affair. The second of 3 straight for the Bills as they take their 2-0 record into tonight's matchup with a desperate 0-2 Jacksonville Jaguar squad here at Highmark Stadium in Orchard Park, New York.
Would you rather be than right here, right now?
Cook gets the handoff, going to try to get the corner. He's got it to the 5 and to the front pylon. Touchdown! A 7-yard touchdown run. James Cook. Back to pass, looking left, has time. Pressure coming. Now rolls out to the right, looking for an open receiver. He's got Kincaid caught the back of the end zone for a 6-yard touchdown reception. Dalton Kincaid takes the handoff to Cook. Pressure coming. Fires down the right side, looking for Coleman. He's got it, and he's into the end zone. The rookie with his first touchdown as a pro. It goes 24 yards for the score. There's the snap, makes the handoff. Going to roll to his left, has time, throws deep over the middle. He overshoots Thomas, intercepted by DeMar Hamlin, coming the other way to the 45 as he races to the far sideline and is tackled at the 41-yard line by Farrell. Allen back to pass, looking right, now over the middle, complete to Shakir, races away from the defender, 10-5, spins into the end zone for the touchdown. Back to pass, pressure coming, throws, has Ty Johnson for the touchdown. A 16-yard touchdown reception for Ty Johnson. Lawrence back to pass in the shotgun, pressure coming from Von Miller, and he catches him from behind for the sack. The Bills, 47-10 in an absolute bludgeoning of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Bills remain perfect at 3-0.
Echoing.
Well, that is your Game Rewind, presented by Connect Life, an official sponsor of the Buffalo Bills. Sign up to donate at connectlife.org. Have you caught your breath yet? It was a party of epic proportions last night. If you were at Highmark Stadium, it got started early and it went late. 47-10, your final, as the Bills are now 3-0 on this young season. For the Bills, it tied for their fourth largest win in team history. Josh Allen won his 8th straight regular season start. That is the longest active quarterback streak in the league. It was the 4th most first half points in franchise history with 34. And the Bills are now 12-1 in their last 12 regular season games played in the Below, and their first 3-0 start since 2020. Take it away, Steve.
If there was 60 minutes of game time in that, 58 of it was Bills highlights. We sliced it down there at the beginning of the show. They rolled. I was, as I am apt to do once in a while when I do something right, I reminded Brownie that just before the start of the season on the Bills by the Numbers podcast, I said one of the surprising things
Said,
about
what will be the most surprising thing about the Bills this season? Your answer was
that their offense would be the top scoring offense in the NFL. Through 3 weeks, that is true by a lot.
And Steve looks like a super genius.
It looks like a little super genius. Another thing I was right about was my guy, Javon Solomon, getting a sack, strip fumble in his first game as a pro. The Bills were all over it last night. Now, the Jaguars are not very good. Trevor Lawrence alluded to it after last week's game, after week 2 loss. They lost 2 games by single digits. I mean, they were
one at the gun.
At the gun.
Week 1 that they
But he said
away.
after the week 2 loss, which was also a very close loss, he said, we just suck right now, were his words. And they're not very good. I thought they were better than they showed last night, but the Bills were a wagon last night. That offense, here's the thing. It looks way too easy for the Buffalo Bills offensively right now. Way too easy. I mean, it looks like a walk in the park every single series. And that's what's really got people excited, I think.
Right, because under Ken Dorsey for a year plus, a lot of times the offense looked like a heavy lift. They were still winning games, but it looked like they had to put every ounce of effort into making it work. And now, and look, I don't think last night is a good game to put an accurate gauge on what this Bills offense is going to be for the vast majority of the season, because in many, many ways last night, I felt that Jacksonville defensive coordinator Ryan Nielsen played right into the hands of what the Bills do best. I mean, you could have lived under a rock for the first 4 years of Josh Allen's career, and you would still know that Josh Allen routinely slices and dices man coverage like a chef with a machete and 3 cucumbers.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just what he does. And yet time and time again, he kept calling man coverage. And he didn't have the horses to run with Bills receiving. Devin Lloyd is not a man coverage linebacker. He wouldn't be on the field in Buffalo's defense.
Yeah, and I'll say this.
Chad Muma, not a man coverage linebacker.
They're injured as well at corner. They were down the depth
Well, that was
chart.
the other thing. Darnell Savage is their starting nickel corner. He's declared out on Sunday. He gets downgraded from questionable to out. Okay, so who's starting? Jarian Jones is starting, the rookie third-round pick out of Florida State. So you got a wet behind-the-ears rookie playing as your starting nickel. He gets hurt on the first possession of the game for the Bills, and he's out. You're down to your third nickel corner, and you're still making man coverage calls? Are you insane? That's insanity. With a guy like Khalil Shakir running around out there, you're absolutely nuts.
They had 5 different you've all heard this. 5 different guys on the Bills scored a touchdown in the first half.
If that doesn't tell you should stop making man coverage calls, I don't know what does. You have nobody that can cover these guys.
Khalil Shakir has yet to have an incompletion in his direction thrown to him this season. Last night they finally got one. It got knocked loose, although it could have been down by contact, but the play got called back by contact by a penalty, and he has yet to have an incomplete pass. Right, Vaughn is getting a sack a game, on pace for 17 sacks this season. They're getting contributions all over and another poignant moment last night was when Damar Hamlin on another Monday night football game where we had seen him. I mean, the Buffalo Bills have Lazarus playing free safety, and he's picking passes off. I mean, this is it. I was walking in today. I was talking to Kevin Karchis, one of the social media guys, and I go, "Listen, this is it, man. You go through. We're down here doing this radio show for the Buffalo Bills in May and June, and everybody's like counting them out. It's gonna the windows closing. Da 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 da. Look at it. Look at us now. I mean, look at these guys now. It doesn't get better than this. You're in an upswing of a season. A lot of games left. A lot of fun on the horizon, and this team is an absolute wagon."
Speaking of Khalil Shakir, he has now caught 27 consecutive pass targets stretching back to last season. That ties Michael Thomas back in 2018 for the longest such streak by a wide receiver since 1991. The guy catches the ball.
Yeah, that's kind of important.
And let's not make any mistake about this. It is no accident that Brandon Beane in the last few drafts has sought to acquire receiving talent that catches the ball at an abnormally high rate. Khalil Shakir, Dalton Kincaid, Keon Coleman.
Yeah.
I mean, run down the list. You know what? We're going to draft guys that catch the ball at a very high catch rate.
And I'll say this too, and this too. In this season, with all the defensive injuries the Bills have had, and the guys that are playing that we didn't know about a month ago, I hope these guys hold up. And I was saying to you, I knew the offense was going to be good, and it is, and I thought they're going to have to kind of carry the load for this defense. And then the defense started getting injured. And we're like, man, what are we going to do? The Bills lead the NFL in forcing opponents' turnovers on downs. They got teams going for it more than anybody, and they're stopping them more than anybody. 8 drives have been stopped on fourth down stops.
That's only in the last 2 weeks.
And they're playing lights out, both sides of the ball. They're only now, in my old age and my cynicism, I'm thinking, man, I don't know how you keep this up for 14 more weeks.
Well, the schedule does get considerably stiffer. People can say what they want about the Baltimore Ravens. I'm telling you right now, they're going to be there at the end of the season.
Yeah.
I don't care that they're 1-2 right now. That's going to be a street fight next week on Sunday night.
Yeah.
And whoever wants to punch the hardest is going to win the football.
Yeah, you're going to have to take a punch next week, both teams. The Bills have had some success with Lamar Jackson, but Derrick Henry is now in the mix, and that changes the equation, obviously.
That's one guy the Bills have not had answers for over the years.
You've got Ravens, Texans, Jets coming up in the next 3 weeks, all on the road. That is the meat and potatoes of the 2024 season right there, staring you in the face. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
It's nice to go in 3-0. Yeah, okay, you got some confidence, and you got out of this last game yesterday a little healthy, didn't lose anybody else. But these next 3 games, this is the kind of stretch where Marv Levy would come in and give us a big speech at the end of it. And it was exactly this situation. We had a 3-game road stretch against 3 really good football teams, and this is where he gave his infamous World War II speech. And you got to win on the road.
Yeah.
And that's what's in front of the Bills coming up in the next 3 weeks. We'll see.
The Bills currently lead the league in points per game
By a wide margin.
Defensive at 37.3 points per game. Defensively,
They are 7th in points allowed at 16 per game. You want to know why the Pittsburgh Steelers are 3-0 despite having only scored one offensive touchdown?
Let's see what here's their defense.
They're giving up 8.7 points per game defensively. It's first in the league.
Yeah,
They're
that's-
giving up half the number of points we've seen the Bills give up.
Yeah, and the Bills have been playing
In 3
lights out. Yeah,
So yeah, that's the bulk of it. Net points right now, I can tell you that the Bills' point differential through 3 games is the second best in franchise history. The only time they were better than the plus 64 they are now was back in 1992, Steve, when your Bills were a plus 74 after the first 3 weeks of the season. The other ones behind the 2024 Bills of plus 64, 1975 and 1964. So in 2 of those 4 years, the Bills went to the ultimate game. One in the AFL, winning a title, the other in the NFL, going to the Super Bowl. Steve already mentioned the 8 turnovers on downs that lead the league defensively for Buffalo. Saints are next with 6 turnover on downs. Josh Allen is the first quarterback in NFL history to complete 75% of his passes, throw for over 4 touchdowns, have no turnovers, take no sacks, lead his team in rushing yards, all in the same game.
and you know what? For Bills fans, it was like he wasn't even the story.
My girlfriend.
And it was like there was so much going on in that game. Certainly, Josh was a huge part of it, obviously, but it's not like the old Josh
where he did everything and nobody else did anything.
Yeah, nobody else helped. This is him, and this is what you've always said about him. The offensive coordinator, they got to give him easy button throws. You got to just get the ball out of his hands once in a while instead of having him run around back there. And they did. They really did.
I am going to give Josh credit for one thing because I noticed this last night, and I don't know why I didn't refer to it on the broadcast. Maybe things were just happening a little too fast, down to down. There was a play where Josh, you could see it in his bones. He wanted to go for all the marbles and throw a touchdown pass and force it in from 40 yards out. And what did he do? He threw it underneath to James Cook for a 15-yard play, first down, and a fresh set of downs moving the sticks. And I looked at that. I looked at Eric Wood, and I said, oh, my God, it's happened. Sugar High Josh is dead. Because the energy in that building last night, everything's going good, and you just want to stick it to him and show him I can throw a 45-yard rope for a touchdown. Coverage was tight. Pass was low percentage throw, and he checked it down to James Cook, who got him 15 yards and a new set of downs, and they go in and score on that drive anyway.
Yeah.
That, to me, is a sign of maturity we have not seen from Josh Allen in previous years.
Right.
And I credit Josh for recognizing time and score, circumstance in the game. Do you want to know what separates Patrick Mahomes, has separated Patrick Mahomes from Josh Allen? It's plays like that. Patrick Mahomes knows when to take that play and not force a big play. Josh has struggled with that at times in his first 6 seasons in the NFL. He did not last night. And what ultimately is the result? A 37-point victory because you're making the right decisions at the right time.
We saw flashes of those things, but it's been a roller coaster, right? You see a game like opening day last year in New York when it was 9-11 and Aaron Rodgers and all that, and Josh is slinging it all over three interceptions.
Even Week 18 last
and
year.
Then, but
2 interceptions in the end zone on 4 throws.
And you've seen a couple of times where he would start to take the check down, do some good things. Yeah, last night was these first 3 games, a quintessential example of how we're seeing a long stretch here where he hadn't turned it on.
I'm just saying, I believe, and look, they haven't been in a lot, but even week 1, they're down 14. It's a perfect recipe for Sugar High Josh to show up and try to do too much.
And he did score 4 touchdowns. He threw 2 and ran 2.
But he didn't have the bug-eyed look, little out of sorts. They were chill. They stayed calm. He stayed poised, and they end up winning the football game. And last night, it's easier when everything's going right. I get it. But a Josh Allen from a few years ago might have tried to force that in for a kill shot, and it might have been an interception.
Yeah, he realized in the Arizona game, week 1, it was 17-3, but it was still early in the second or midway through the second. And all he really wanted to do was get to that double dip at halftime, see if they could get some points before they go in, and to close the gap a little bit. The old Josh would have been trying to win the game in the first half.
Yes.
Great. It really is. It shows that, it's the atmosphere about this offense is very, very different. Like I said earlier, it just looks, when he's playing like that and like the way you described, it just looks really easy. And man, oh man, is it fun to watch.
In an effort to get a national perspective that is not clouded by Bill's myopia, as we suffer from, we'd like to welcome in Sherry Burris now, a host of Good Morning Football, which airs Monday to Friday at 8 a.m. on NFL Network. Sherry also a host of Good Morning Football Overtime, which streams Monday to Friday at 10 a.m. on the Roku channel and airs locally here in Buffalo on Fox 29 Monday through Friday at 3:30 Eastern Time. Sherry, welcome.
Hi, Sherry.
Appreciate you joining us.
Wow.
And why don't you just first give us maybe the 10,000-foot national view of this Bills team, off to a 3-0 start here for the first time since 2020.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. And I think it's funny, I said it on the show this morning that there's just been years, I don't need to tell you guys are Bills fans. It's like, oh, this is the year the Bills are going to the Super Bowl. This is the year the Bills are going to the Super Bowl. And then it kind of felt like this summer things were a little bit more quiet. Maybe Bills flying a little under the radar, all the talk of, well, Gabe Davis is gone, Steph Diggs is gone. What's Josh going to do? The world is ending. Hello, 3-0. Last night was just the definition of perfection across the board. It just seemed like the ball was going every right way for Buffalo. And I think as we look big picture and take a step back, it's kind of like from the media standpoint, we probably should have given the Bills a little bit more credit in the offseason, or they deserve their flowers, particularly the way we're playing. And if you think about that game last night, if they can keep that up or even something similar, it might be a very long postseason there in Buffalo.
Yes, certainly. Things are going swimmingly early on in this season, but it is. They're not even a quarter of the way through the season, and it's a long, drawn-out season. And for you, look at the division. Even the Jets now, they seem to be after the Thursday. I think it was a Thursday night game they played. They seem like they're the Jets that we thought they were going to be. Aaron Rodgers is throwing it. They can run it. Their defense stepped up. They stumbled a little bit out of the blocks, but man, oh man. The AFC East now looks to be a 2-horse race with the Jets and the Bills. And is that how you would see it as well?
Yeah, most definitely. I definitely had questions about the Jets and Aaron Rodgers, the fact that he's, 40 years old, 20th season, if that's, just unimaginable to be playing at that high of a level for so long. Would he be able to come back and be that Aaron Rodgers of old that we saw with Green Bay? So the fact that he's able to lead them to what they're looking like right now. On the show, Kyle always jokes, the first week you can't trust of the NFL season. And then as we get into week 2 and 3, we really start to see who teams are becoming. And I think when you look at it, it is sort of the Jets and the Bills as those two teams that are really kind of standing out. And, if you look, their horses are kind of leading the way towards that finish line early. But again, it's a marathon. It's sort of like a sprinted marathon. It kind of feels like sometimes too, right? Doing 17 games. But the fact they're only 3 weeks in and the Bills haven't really stumbled, and the mistakes, if you want to even call it that, they haven't been largely detrimental, I think is just a really good, solid base. You players always talk about not wanting to peak in September. You want to peak December, January. And that kind of feels like where the Bills are as you look at the first handful of games so far this season.
To your point, Sherry, about the free agent losses due mainly to salary cap constraints for the Bills, everybody was wondering about this new democratic approach to the passing game. Everybody eats, kumbaya and all of that. But through 3 games, this has been a very selfless group. And again, last night, 10 different passing targets, catch passes. I can't imagine if you're a defensive coordinator how you game plan for a team that doesn't really have a true number one. It's almost like they took a little bit of a page out of the Green Bay Packers book last year because they don't really have a true number one. And Jordan Love said leading up to this season, I just play the play. It feels like Josh is playing that way now too.
Absolutely. And there does seem to be sort of this air about Josh. I've only had a couple of production meetings with him when I covered some Bills games for CBS NFL. He just seems like he's genuinely having so much fun. Not that he wasn't before, but you guys can tell me, it just seems like he's just playing so free. There isn't sort of this stress maybe and pressure. I mean, we're seeing him here just scramble. It's incredible to watch him work. And I really think that's sort of a testament that there is such selflessness in that room. And that really is a key to success. You look at it, I mean, Keon Coleman just took the preseason, offseason by storm, just because of who he is, which definitely displayed there on the field. And DeMar Hamlin getting his first career interception last night. I mean, talk about a feel-good story. So the fact that there are so many playmakers, I do send all my best wishes to any defensive coordinator, because when you think, great, cool, we can stop, player X, Y, and Z. Oh, wait, no, we got to there's just too many options to really, if I were a defensive coordinator, to be like, yes, I feel confident that we can lock down the Bills offense. Because even if you think about the playmakers, I mean, James Cook last night, my goodness, he lives in the end zone. You then still have to take into account Josh Allen and his legs and what he's able to do. So it's just a bounty of riches, it seems like, there you guys have in Buffalo.
When you look at the conference right now, it would be actually the 1 seed would be the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are allowing only 8 points a game defensively. They seem to be, doing it the old-fashioned way. But is there any other team, with Pittsburgh, Buffalo, Kansas City, of course, Baltimore, Houston, and the Jets? Any of these teams in the AFC a surprise to you about who they are and what they have shown through 3 weeks?
Yeah, just to sort of go back, leave it to the Steelers to do it the old-fashioned way, right? That just seems so on brand for the Steelers to kind of go back to that, steel curtain defensive kind of leadership mindset. But I've actually been really surprised by the Ravens. The last year or so, I was able to cover them when I lived in the DC area, and we sort of thought we knew who they were. But then coming into the season, as I said, week one's kind of an outlier. So you think, okay, they almost beat the Chiefs. They'll be fine. Then they have week 2 where they lose again to the Raiders at home. So you're like, wait a minute, who is this team? And again, the fact they almost let a lead slip in the fourth quarter to the Cowboys, I'm starting to wonder who they are. I know they have a new defensive coordinator in Zach Orr now with McDaniel going to Seattle. It's Mike McDaniel, Mike McDonald. Their names are they're very, very close. So the fact that they do have a new defensive coordinator yet again, they still have a lot of those same pieces on the defense, but that was a team I just sort of imagine would pick up and keep running and they would have a really good shot come January for a playoff run, but it's not really coming as easily as I thought. But I think that kind of adds the parity of just the NFL, and that's kind of why we love it and we watch it, because if we knew who was going to win, we wouldn't probably watch, right? So it makes it a little bit more fun kind of seeing how everything shakes out.
Yeah, I got to tell you, Sherry, I'm not buying this slow start from the Ravens. I have not forgotten they were the number 1 seed in the AFC last year. I think they're just trying to get over the fact that they had to replace 3 starting offensive linemen. I think it's going to take them a little time, but John Harbaugh has been there way too long, has had way too much success. They have Derrick Henry in the backfield. I don't know what it is, but I think they're going to get their ducks in a row. I'm just hoping it's not this week against the Bills on Sunday Night Football. Last one for you. Can you give us your take on Cincinnati? Joe Burrow says our season is not over after their 3rd straight loss last night. We have seen them get off to slow starts in the past. 0-2 is like par for the course for them. But now they're 0-3, and their defense has some bad injuries up front with their 2 defensive tackles out. I'm worried Joe Burrow is going to have to hang 35 up on the board every week if they want to win more than they lose right now.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely hard to think of the team that went to the Super Bowl just a couple of years ago, that Bengals team, to where we are now. Again, it's not historically done to come back from an 0-3 hole to make the playoffs. The odds are definitely harder, but I think, I've been trying to think about it, being also someone who, again, working in the DC, Baltimore area, covered the Commanders. it might not necessarily just be like a Bengals issue. Maybe we can give Washington a little bit more credit for what they're able to do and Jaden Daniels himself, but it's definitely concerning when you think about Cincinnati being 0-3, what their defense was doing yesterday against that sort of younger Commanders offense. And you got to remember, Ja'Marr Chase wasn't there for most of the offseason, so they even have some, I know there's that LSU connection with Burrow and Chase, so they have that chemistry already. But I do think there is something to having that off-season program and getting more comfortable with the offense and each other. Maybe they might be a step or two behind. I'm not blaming Ja'Marr Chase for all of this, but I definitely think there's just a few little pieces to the puzzle that are a little off kilter that we're not used to seeing that are definitely causing some issues there.
Sherry, thanks so much for spending some time with us and giving us a couple of minutes. Appreciate you.
I appreciate you guys. I used to live in Rochester, New York, and everyone around us were Bills fans. One of the favorite places I've lived in my entire life. So it's great talking to you guys.
All right, thanks, Sherry. We appreciate it. That's Sherry Burris, who you'll find on NFL Network's Good Morning Football and Good Morning Football Overtime, which, as we told you, streams Monday to Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern on the Roku channel and airs locally here on Fox 29 Monday to Friday at 3:30 a.m. Eastern time. Yeah, and you'll see her on Good Morning Football sometimes too, out there on the West Coast, airing at 8 a.m. on NFL Network. We got to press forward, but before we do that, we have to take a break. We do want your takeaways from last night's near perfect performance, 47-10 over the Jaguars. Let us know what your biggest takeaways are as we quickly will have to turn the page and get ready for a difficult road stretch. 3 consecutive games on the road coming up. We'll talk about last night and about what lies on the horizon next for your Bills here on One Bills Live, presented by Colada Health. It's Buffalo Bills Radio.
WGR Sports Radio 550.
This is the story of the one. As a warehouse manager, her job is to transform chaos into clarity and to see patterns where others see problems. Luckily, she's got a partner who shares her perspective. Grainger offers over 1 million industrial-grade products, backed by real person support and in-depth online resources, so she can tackle every task with precision and turn potential setbacks into streamlined success. Call clickgrainger.com or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows the resourceful individual to earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash, receive unlimited 1% retirement bonuses, and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Get the privileges of the high net worth for any net worth for just $5 per month. Sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product specific disclosures, visit Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC.
WGR.
Welcome back to a Buffalo Football Tuesday. Chris Brown, Steve Tasker with you here on One Bills Live. This week's player of the game, who else? Quarterback Josh Allen with his 263-yard, 23 for 30 passing performance that included 4 touchdowns. Was also the team's leading rusher with 6 carries for 44 yards. The player of the game, presented by Wegmans, the official tailgate headquarters of the Buffalo Bills. Get your Dion Dawkins Buffalo Snow Crunch cereal exclusively at Wegmans while supplies last. A portion of the proceeds will benefit Dion's Dreamers, an official foundation of Dion Dawkins. Yeah, really couldn't give that one to anybody else, especially when 5 different players scored touchdowns. Josh throwing 4 of them, and then James Cook running the other one in through the course of last night's 47-10 domination of the Jacksonville Jaguars. We are taking your phone calls at 803-0550, 1-888-550-2550 for your takeaways from last night's victory over the Jaguars to help the Bills improve to 3-0 on the season. Leading us off on the phone lines today is Steve out in Wheatfield. What do you got for us, Steve? You're on One Bills Live.
27. Hey, guys. Thank you for taking my call. I appreciate it.
Sure.
So I just have a couple things. So first thing was, Chris, you literally just mentioned it while I was waiting on hold. And I'm like, dang, that's what I wanted to say. But it's regarding Josh's sugar high being dead. So I thought his sugar high and how he was crazy ended in that Patriots playoff game. And I thought it was over, and I'm like, hey, he's doing the checkdowns. He's taking what the defense is giving him. He looks fantastic. And then 2 years later, we have the Jets Monday night opener with 3 interceptions. And we're like, dude, what are you doing? You're not losing by 3 scores. Stop throwing interceptions. Just take what the defense is giving you, move it down the field and score. So last night, watching the game, I said, I think Josh's craziness is done. I said, I really do. Like, we're 3 games in a row without an interception. I'm going to knock on all the wood I can find. But I just think he is doing a phenomenal job of taking what the defense is giving him. And like you said, with that, where he could have gone for a 40-yard touchdown, and my friend was like, come on, Josh, chuck it. I'm like, no, take the check down. Just take the check down. And he did. He took it to James Cook. So that was really cool. And then the other thing I wanted to mention, I'm not one to toot my own horn, but I called you guys last week when Thurman was on your show, and I was talking about how the Jags are a bugaboo, and until midweek, I was kind of nervous about them, and then I had this weird feeling that they were going to do to the Jags what they did to the Titans 2 years ago on Monday night and just obliterate them. Yeah. And Thurman Thomas disagreed with me and said, no, I think it's going to be a really tough game. And I hated to disagree with Thurman, but it was kind of cool that they just did it. They just obliterated them, got the monkey off their back. And it was a phenomenal game last night. And, I mean, I think I got 45 minutes of sleep just out of sheer excitement from the game. And like a caller said this morning on, Joe and Jeremy, he said, just enjoy the ride. Too many people are looking at every season as Super Bowl or bust. And he said, just sit back and enjoy every game. That's why we love the sport, because there's a full season of fun, and enjoy every game. So, guys, thank you for taking my call. Go Bills, and have a great rest of your week.
All right. Thanks, Steve. Good call. Appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, Josh, I would like to certifiably say that we're never going to see Sugar High Josh again. I don't know what it is that makes me feel that this year is different. Because look, I think Josh nationally is still underrated for his football IQ. And I think the main reason why is because of his turnovers. I don't think nationally he gets the respect for being as smart a player as he is in terms of diagnosing defenses, making checks, adjusting on the fly, making plays off script, because the turnovers are the one thing that all the national pundits point to. And they say, well, that'll get him in the end. And for some reason, I think the cerebral nature of his game this year has been tweaked ever so slightly and is a little bit different. And maybe it's because he's tired of watching Mahomes make more smart plays and grind out games and get them in the garage, even when his team isn't playing great, or even when he himself, Mahomes, is not playing great, which has kind of been the case for the first 3 weeks for the Chiefs. And yet there they are, still 3-0. And I think Josh might be taking a page out of Mahomes' book. And if he is, I think the Bills will be in very good shape come the end of the season, barring some unforeseen catastrophic circumstance like a horrible rash of injuries at a couple of positions. I think he's matured and taken that next step.
My girlfriend.
I mean,
doesn't mean he's going to be devoid of mistakes.
Right. I mean,
they're going to
that guy's still going to live inside Josh even when he's 60. So,
but I don't think he's going to have 15 interceptions this year.
Yeah, right. You can bet it's going to rear its head once in a while, but for the time being, and the more you see of what we've seen in the last 3 weeks, the more ingrained that will become to Josh's demeanor, and that'll be who he is as a quarterback. And Bills fans have always seen this kind of Josh Allen. We kind of put on blinders when he had games like the opening day of 2023 in New York on 9/11 and all that we just mentioned. We tend to put on blinders and say, that's an aberration. And basically it was. And my favorite, I told this to Brownie. Now I know that the league MVP trophy is a regular season trophy, but Bills fans, this is what they see. So Lamar wins the MVP last year, his second, bless his heart. It's fine. He deserved it. Great. But Bills fans see this stat. Josh Allen, through the regular season and the playoffs last year, had the same number of interceptions and more touchdowns than last year's MVP and the comeback player of the year combined. That's what Bills fans see. they see the Josh Allen that is bigger than life. He's bigger than the MVP, bigger than the comeback player of the year. And that's what they tend to focus on. Now you're seeing this guy that not only are the Bills like 3-0, they're hanging 30 plus every single game. They're leading the league in scoring, but it looks shockingly easy. I mean, everybody's on this. They got James Cook, who's a workhorse. You got Ty Johnson catching touchdown passes. Keon Coleman doing things. Khalil Shakir and Dalton Kincaid is exactly who we hoped and dreamed they would be. This offensive line is big, physical, and athletic. I mean, it just looks easy. So days like this are few and far between. And we can love on these guys all you want. And I just read something on social. Just enjoy the ride. This is going to be a beauty this season. A lot of football to be played, but man, oh man, we're back in this place where we are every season with Josh Allen.
Yes.
After every game, you can't wait for the next one.
Let's get back to the phones and to John in a car. John, what do you got for us? You're on One Bills Live.
Gentlemen, good afternoon. Another wonderful win last night. You were talking about what might bother me, and it was bothering me is the fact that we're giving up a lot of 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, first downs on the defensive side of the ball. And to me, it looks like there's just not enough beef up front. So they're still running the base 4-2, okay, inside. And when you give an offensive lineman 3 steps to whack your linebacker, I just think if you put a hat on a hat there, it's going to make it a lot harder to get that 4th and 2 or that 4th and 1. Because we gave up a lot of 4s last night and kept the Jaguars out the field. Now, trust me, I loved last night's game. Josh, I think, he was just having a field day. Okay, he was making everybody, he's looking at the read going, okay, I'm throwing over here. Okay, I'm throwing over here. It's perfect as far as offense. And the defense played really well, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I just think those 4th down, the 4th and 1s and the 4th and 2, that they think it was because it just wasn't.
Yeah. John, I respect what you're saying, but I'm going to just tell you right now, your eyes are deceiving you. Because, yes, Jacksonville had a couple of 4th down conversions in the game, but they also had 4 turnovers on downs on 4th down last night. And they were 2 for 30. Hold on, John. You had your turn. Let me just finish here. They had 4 turnover on downs on 4th down that the Bills defense got. And Jacksonville was 2 for 13 on 3rd down. Like, to me, it was a clinic. They gave up 10 points. I respect what you're saying, but I'm going to have to disagree with you. I mean, the Bills lead the league in turnover on downs with 8, and that's just in the last 2 games. They're getting off.
Exactly what you're saying, but you got to look at what the down and distance was. 4th and 1 compared to 4th and 5 or 4th and 6 or even 4th and 3. It's a lot different scenario.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You know,
I'll say this, John.
You're telling me we only gave up, 3-4 downs, okay, but we stopped them 5 times. I think you said. What was the down and distance that they turned it over on downs? That's all I'm saying is.
Yeah.
I just think on a really short, narrow window of 4th down and 1, where you're trying to get off the field and you're trying to stop them from advancing the ball. I just think if you got 1,200 pounds of bodies in there, or I'm sorry, 1,600 pounds of bodies in there, instead of 1,300 pounds of bodies, within 1 foot of each other.
Gotcha. I'll say this.
Especially with Derrick Henry, we're going to take care of him on Sunday night.
Yeah. All right. So I'll tell you this, John. The one thing I'll say about what you're at is this. It's all a little bit intertwined, and the Bills faced 8 4th downs last night. 8. That is a reflection of how productive their offense was. The Jacksonville Jaguars were forced to go for it on 4th down 8 times in a game. 8. Not 2. 8. So if you're saying the Bills are not doing good enough on 4th down, one of the things they're getting at is the other teams that they're playing have to go for it a ton because they got to keep up. They have got to find a way to stay on the field offensively. So the Bills' defense is put into a little bit of a bind in that regard. They were playing 4-down football defensively for 2 quarters of that game, 2.5 quarters of that game last night. So if they give up 50% of their 4th down stops, I don't know that. And if it's 4th down, most teams won't go for it on 4th and 3, 4th and 4. They're punting it away. So if you're going to use those and the 4th and 1s and all that, again, 4th, come
And
on.
on some of the 4th and shorts, I will tell you that the nickel corner, Cam Lewis, did come off the field, and they did put a 3rd linebacker on the field. I mean, if you want to play a 50 front, that's just not going to happen with this defensive scheme. Unless they're on the goal line.
And I'll say this too. Okay. If you want to see them put fat guys on, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say fat guy.
Big guys.
I reverted. All right. If you want to see him put some beef on the field on a 4th and short, okay, I'll listen. But that too has its limitations, particularly with a quarterback like Trevor Lawrence, as good or as bad as you think he is. There's nothing, and I thought the Bills were going to do it last night. But as good or bad as you think Trevor Lawrence is, it's easy enough for him to, fake a handoff to ETN, and then some fat guy gets out and gets 3 yards down the line of scrimmage. He just tosses him the ball because everybody's packed in there, and there's, you got all big guys in there. They can sneak a guy out. Trevor Lawrence will boot it out of there, and then you've got a big play given up on 4th and short. So instead of a stop, you give up a touchdown. That's what you're risking whenever you start putting bigger and bigger and bigger bodies and more of them on the field on a 4th down. They're going to cross you up. So giving up a first down is one thing. Giving up a touchdown is reprehensible. So, listen, we're splitting hairs here. The Bills are off the charts on 3rd and 4th down last night.
And John's right. Derrick Henry will be a different test next week, but let's see what the plan is for that when we get there on Sunday night. Break time for us here. More of your phone calls when we return on a Buffalo Football Tuesday here on One Bills Live. Stay with us.
WGR Sports Radio 550.
This is the story of the one. As a warehouse manager, her job is to transform chaos into clarity and to see patterns where others see problems. Luckily, she's got a partner who shares her perspective. Grainger offers over 1 million industrial-grade products, backed by real-person support and in-depth online resources, so she can tackle every task with precision and turn potential setbacks into streamlined success. Call clickgrainger.com or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows the resourceful individual to earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash, receive unlimited 1% retirement bonuses, and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Get the privileges of the high net worth for any net worth for just $5 per month. Sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC.
New York Public Schools give students the chance to make their dreams possible. And every time you take a chance on the New York lottery, you're helping them win too. Every ticket purchase benefits New York Public Schools. Please play responsibly. Must be 18 plus. Gambling problem? Call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY.
Shop Macy's VIP sale starting Thursday. Use your coupon or Macy's card and take an extra 30% off the latest fall trends from designers that rarely go on sale. And save 15% off skincare, makeup, fragrances, and more. Plus, shop fall specials for even more great deals on top brands at Macy's. Savings off regular and already reduced prices. Exclusions apply.
When something happens to your kitchen, you might say,
This is ludicrous.
but that won't fix your home. That will only get you the rapper, Ludacris.
Having trouble? Don't panic. Don't be alarmed. You need to file a claim? Holla at State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
That's right. You can file a claim on the app or call us.
Thanks, Mr. Chris.
No matter how ludicrous the situation, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
State Farm, Bloomington, Illinois. WGR.
Time for the numbers that matter, presented by the New York Lottery. Backing the Bills sounds grand, like the new grand scratch-off games from the New York Lottery. With prizes up to $3 million. Gambling problem, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY. Josh Allen is the first quarterback in NFL history to do the following in the same game. Complete 75% of his passes, throw for 4 or more touchdowns, have 0 turnovers, take 0 sacks, and lead his team in rushing yards. Unicorn with a capital UNICORN. Big shiny horn on his forehead. Well, I don't know if we do that, but look. Who did that? Thomas. That's got to be Thomas.
Look at that.
Thomas Howard.
We had a small little uniform.
Talk about timing. Look at that drop. What a crack
How
staff
about
we
the
have.
production value we've got going on?
Our quality control is in good hands.
For the time being. Start talking about salmon on there. Yeah, this game last night, we're going to talk about Dan Orlovsky's coming on in a couple minutes, who was obviously on the broadcast. A lot of stuff going on in that broadcast. There's 2 things that struck me last night about the broadcast. The national broadcast carried my buddy who was in here yesterday, John Fina, as the legend of the game. Did the whole thing. Crowd was on. It was awesome. Looked great. Made Buffalo look really good. And then they had the pregame ceremonies. And I can't remember the sideline reporter's name.
Laura
Rutledge had Von Miller on a quick tunnel interview. The camera.
Before player introductions?
They talk to Von. Von puts his helmet on and walks down the tunnel. The camera follows him, and he's right out through the smoke. I mean, it was pretty stunning. And
Hollywood.
So there was a couple of things going on. And Louis Riddick, who was also a guest of our show yesterday, and Orlovsky in the booth together were really spectacular last night. They had good.
Did they play off one another well?
They were entertaining. They were informative.
Yeah.
They were appropriately.
Because it's like an offense-defense
Yes.
kind of perspective thing
Yes.
that they go back and forth on. They're great. They're a good tandem.
They didn't. I don't think they weren't there kicking dirt on the Jaguars, but they were critical. They weren't just handing
Gushing.
over bouquets to the Bills either. So it was. I thought the broadcast last night was really good.
And we'll have Dan on a little bit later on in the show, so be sure to stay tuned for that. We got to get back to the phones, though, and to Mike in Hamburg next. What's up, Mike?
Hi, guys.
What you got for us?
Well, I made a prediction in January and February when I was talking to you guys.
Okay.
I haven't talked to you in a while. Because my wife passed away. So
sorry to hear that.
Yeah, happens. I predicted Von Miller. Steve, you probably remember. I predicted Von Miller was going to have a stellar season and that everybody needs to slow down on him being a bust. At the beginning of the year, I predicted he's going to have 15 sacks, a top 3 defensive player for a chance of player of the year, and the comeback player of the year. I also predicted Josh Allen would not have anywhere near the sack or the interceptions that he has had in the years that he's been with Stephon Diggs, because Diggs was a crybaby. Even though I liked him, he was a crybaby. And Allen forced the ball numerous times to Diggs to keep his mouth shut. And that's why he had so many interceptions. I also predicted that Josh Allen will be the MVP of the league and the MVP of the Super Bowl. And lastly, I predicted Josh Allen is the best player in the NFL, and the second best player in the NFL is Michael Parsons.
Remember, I
And the
think he
player
was supposed to come on
before
one day, but he couldn't.
that
because
was
he
the
was
best player in the NFL is now retired, and that was Aaron Donald.
Commercial. I forgot about him.
Well, maybe
Sorry,
we should
you
just
get
call
around
you
it.
Mike Radames.
Makes sense.
Mike. That's a heck of a run you got going here, and then a lot of those
Shut
are
up,
looking
Bob.
pretty
Shut up,
good. So good on you.
We need a Howard. We need a rock star.
Steve and I were bullish on Vaughn in the offseason, and then what we saw in training camp made us feel even better about that. And we're seeing the fruits of quite frankly, Von Miller's labor. At age 35, it took him over a year to get right again, but he is right again. And I don't think there's any debate about that.
I think you can see how that he feels right.
Yes.
He's playing with some exuberance and having a lot of fun. It's good to see.
Absolutely. We are unfortunately right up against another break here. So we have to step aside, pay some bills. And when we come back, we're going to be joined by ESPN NFL analyst Dan Orlovsky. You saw him on the ESPN broadcast last night. He joins us for his thoughts on Bills Jaguars when we return here on One Bills Live, presented by Kaleida Health. It's Buffalo Bills Radio.
WGR Sports Radio 550. Sports Radio 550 WGR Buffalo and WKSE HD2 Niagara Falls Buffalo 98.5 FM.
And Odyssey.
All right, here we are on the Buffalo Football Tuesday. Chris Brown, Steve Tasker with you, and pleased to be joined now by ESPN NFL analyst Dan Orlovsky, who was on the call last night with Louis Riddick and Chris Fowler. And Dan Orlovsky's appearances on One Bills Live are presented by Caesars Sportsbook, an official mobile sports betting partner of the Buffalo Bills. Well, Dan, you were here. You experienced it. You lived it. It was outright domination. And I'll be the first to admit that some of what Jacksonville did, especially defensively, played right into the hands of Josh Allen, which is where I'd like to begin
There
here,
should be a
because I'm
trial.
absolutely stupefied as to why Ryan Nielsen, who I know is a man cover caller by trade, why would he stick with it so long? I mean, I saw you at halftime. I said, how much longer is this guy going to keep making man coverage calls against Josh Allen, who for years has sliced and diced opponents when they give him man coverage? It stupefied me.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of Nielsen, and I believe he's a really good coach. You know, Chris Fowler asked me on the broadcast last night. He was like, all right, can Atlanta, that's where he was last year, can Jacksonville get a stop? And I said, no, I think he played man. And you know, to your point, that became the main issue. I think my answer is it's not an easy offense to play against right now. You know, and the simple version is because of the offensive line and because Joe Brady has made a commitment to run the football and then they do it well, it's tough to just play them in shell unless you have outstanding linebackers and your front four you totally believe can stop the run in that capacity. And I don't think Jacksonville believes that. And so that's why they just kept dropping down that safety and trying to put an extra body down near the football. And also it was a little bit because, you know, like I thought Joe did a great job of, and this is why football sometimes is not as complicated as we make it. Like the Keon Coleman touchdown, he puts a sixth offensive lineman on the field. Okay, well, as a coordinator, when you're watching over there and you're saying six offensive linemen, you're thinking, all right, they're more than likely going to run the football, so you're making a defensive call, playing the assumption game or playing the percentages. Also, when you run the football well, you're going to get single eye safety more often than maybe you anticipate or that you should, because defenses want to try to make you one-dimensional. That was at least a on paper goal for Jacksonville. And so I think there's part of it is, you know, going back throughout the offseason, this is a very difficult defense or offense to just match up against right now.
And, you know, we've seen flashes of play from Josh throughout his career. The guy goes off, we call him a unicorn, and the guy does stuff nobody else does. Big athlete, he runs, he hurdles people. He's done that a lot throughout his career. But now with the Joe Brady offense, and with these guys, I don't want to say just guys, I don't want to make it like they're just guys. Shakir, Kincaid, Cook, Coleman, Samuel, okay, all those guys. The thing that makes this year way different, because Josh is still doing a lot, is how easy it looks. Now, certainly the Jacksonville's got some problems and they did some stuff, but man, oh man, it just looks like the Bills never really broke a sweat in this game. And even last week when they hung all those points on the Dolphins, they just don't feel like they flexed a little. Now, last night, maybe they did. They flexed a little. But man, oh man, I think the striking thing about it is how easy it looks for Josh Allen so far in the 2024 season.
And Steve, I'd say this, what they've done offensively under Joe is they've taken the simple and presented it in a complicated manner. And they're not Joe didn't make new plays. It's not like they're inventing football or reinventing it. He's figured out the things that they're really good at it. And it's not 4 plays. It is a gamut of plays. And he's just making them look super complicated by all the different personnel. The Keon Coleman touchdown, I'll go back to it. Perfect example. It's a play that's been around football forever. He just presented it in a certain way with the 6 offensive linemen and a tight end. I don't know, sometimes did you guys see last night that they took the 6th offensive lineman, Anderson, and they brought, instead of putting in a traditional tight end formation and the tight end outside of him, they had Dawson lined up as the tight end and then him as a wing off of him. And then they would just collapse.
Right. They've even motioned him sometimes, Dan.
Yeah, so you're just taking this stuff and it's a little Shanahan-like. So that's part of it, and I think that's allowed them to play very fast. I also think, I made the comment last night, that's the best half of football I've ever seen Josh play. And, Kansas City playoff. And Chris, I saw you and you said, man, the New England half. The reason I kind of made that comment, and I still believe it, is one, there was a ton of control at the line of scrimmage with him. Let me make sure everyone understands. All the handling of all those movements and motions, that's a lot. You got to make sure that you get set and this person moves and that person moves and you're not getting penalties. And I also think the ball placement on some of the throws was remarkable. I mean, this throw to Kincaid is absolutely it's 6 feet, 7 feet off the ground. And if he doesn't catch it with his hands, his face mask is going to catch it. The Shakir touchdown, it's perfectly thrown. The Keon Coleman touchdown, it's perfectly thrown. And again, these are easy catches.
How about Ty Johnson rolling to the left?
That throw is so ridiculous. Because he moves to his left, and then it's just a flick of the wrist. And so, that Shakir throw, if that's here on the hip, it's a tackle and, first down, but not a touchdown. So I think that was just really, really the most impressive element of, specifically what Josh did.
Yeah, with respect to Josh, we were kind of discussing this a little bit. I think it might be a little too early to pass judgment on it, but I don't know what it is. Because I always have felt that Josh has had a high football IQ, but every so often, sugar high Josh shows up, and there are some ill-advised decisions. Last year, week 1, MetLife Stadium, we saw it. Even in week 18 last year against Miami.
Sure.
2 throws, they were arm punts, but 2 throws into the end zone that were a little ill-advised. Granted, one was on 4th down. I don't know what it is, but there was a play last night. He thought for a half a second about throwing a 40-yard rope to the end zone on a low percentage play, and he checks it down instead to Cook, and it goes for 15 yards. And my eyes opened up really big, and I said, oh, my gosh, that was a Mahomes-like decision right there that he just made on the check down to Cook. It's a small sample, but I'm wondering if we're seeing a maturation of Josh with that decision-making that makes him even more consistent, which maybe for defensive coordinators is downright scary.
Yeah, I absolutely think you are. It sounds like you are as well when you sit there and you talk with him and you hear him kind of share how he's feeling in the offense. And then, Chris, I don't know which one of you guys rattled off the names. I'll go back to 2 years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, sitting with Brandon Beane and talking about, kind of where Josh, at least in that moment, they were hoping that Josh was going to get kind of where he sits right now. And Brandon said, it's my job that I have to put enough people around him that he feels okay with making some of those decisions. That if you do check the ball down, that there's a person there worthy of checking the ball down to, and that you can go get 12 or 15 yards. When you rattle off the names, the sum is greater than the individual part. It reminds me a little bit of the year in 2017 when the Eagles won the Super Bowl. There wasn't this 1,000-yard receiver or this superstar, that one person. It was, they got a Kincaid, and then they got a Knox, and then they got a Shakir, and then they got an MVS, and they got a Samuel, and then they got a Cook, and then they got a Matt Collins, and then they got I'm probably forgetting somebody else. It's
Keon Coleman.
Yeah, Keon Coleman. I mean, if on NFL Live, we're going to talk about the Bills offense today. And one of the things I'm going to say is, if you don't have 5 or 6 people on your defense that you unequivocally believe can match up, you can't stop them. Yeah. You got to have 6 guys that can cover.
Yeah, and you talk about the way the pressure that has put on opposing offenses. The Bills are, they score on 5 possessions in the first half, and the Bills defense then, because of that, the Bills defense faces 8 fourth down tries by Jacksonville's offense. They're in go forward mode. They got to try and catch up. And now all of a sudden you're looking at a defense that is, even before the season started, they were injured. They lost Milano. They lost Bernard early in the season. And Taron Johnson early in the season.
Makes no sense.
Right. Poyer and Hyde are gone. Now you've got, a 6th-round corner in Benford out there who actually plays really well. You've got backups, low-round draft picks.
6th-round safety in Hamlin. Right. 6th-round pick in Balin Spector.
So you got all these guys. How do you, what's a defense do?
I asked them this.
What did he say?
Steve, I asked them this because, so one of the things that I get fascinated about with this defense is that they are so good against the run, and they play with 2 safeties deep. And so, I asked Sean, I asked Bobby Babich it, and they kind of looked at me like I was an idiot. It was kind of funny because I'm like, how are you guys good at this? And they're like, well, we have to be able to defend the run half a man down or half a body down. I'm like, no, I get that. How? Like, how are you good at it? And they kind of looked at me and they, said, one, your front's got to be worthy of doing that. And, giving love to Ed and Daquan and Greg and Epinesa, like your front has to be worthy of it. 2, that the people that they've had, and DeMar kind of intimated this as well, the people that are in some of the spots playing now, it's not like they're new to the NFL. They're just new to playing time in Buffalo. Like DeMar's been there a little bit. Balin's been there a little bit. Sean McDermott said Balin hasn't lost out on competitions because he wasn't good enough. It was because of injury. And so I think part of it is, they mentioned how much time they spent in meeting with backup players and how much extra practice time is spent with those quote unquote backup players. And, the word gets thrown around so often, the culture or the standard. And I think that they have such, it's not all that different in their offense right now. There's such a simplicity to the defense that everyone knows where they got to be, depending on formation or emotion. They also know exactly where teams are going to try and attack them. And they play to that, and they know where the weakness of it is.
All right. That being said, and as exciting as 3-0 has been, it is a major step up in weight class. People can say whatever the hell they want about the 1-2 Ravens. That team's going to be there at the end of the year. They're going to get it figured out. I know they have 3 new offensive linemen they're trying to blend in. They have a new offensive line coach after the passing of Joe D'Alessandris. That requires an adjustment. And defensively, they're still trying to wrap their head around a new defensive coordinator, knowing Mike McDonald's up in Seattle now as head coach. They'll be there at the end of the year. What do the Bills have to be mindful of defensively that changes precipitously with a Derrick Henry in the backfield?
Yeah, and so this past weekend against Dallas was the first time that you watched that offense in Baltimore this year and said that's who they are. The first couple of games, they were trying to figure out who this offense was going to be with one like you mentioned, an offensive line that was not playing well and really struggling with the quickness of a defensive line. So that's settled down a little bit. 2, were they going to be a little bit more spread-ish with Lamar, or are they going to try to be a little bit more compact and put Derrick Henry behind the quarterback and run downhill? And that's really what they got into, was that downhill run with Derrick Henry, and put Patrick Ricard, that big 300-pound weapon, onto the field. So, there's a little bit of, I still believe there's a little bit of, you got to kind of know or guess a little bit who they're going to be identity-wise. You're going to get a combination of the spread out and the motion and some of the zone read and quarterback run, or the Derrick Henry stuff. And I think part of it is you're trying to get a feel for the game. I think Baltimore is like how defenses are going to try to play against them. They're not throwing the ball to Mark Andrews as much as they have in the past. So it's really about Derrick Henry and how they're going to try to utilize them. And then, for Buffalo offensively, Baltimore's defense is not what it was last year. The secondary is not playing at the same level. I also don't believe that the linebackers are the same level. I think the best way you get after them is your tight ends own the middle of the field.
It'll be interesting to see it, because we know there's 14 games to play, and the Bills have a lot to prove still.
For sure.
And so do the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, they're in a different division. They have probably had some pretty high expectations for how this was going to go. But you're right. How much of a difference has the coordinator change in Baltimore made?
A lot. I think, again, this was probably like their most consistent performance against Dallas. It got a little bit loose at the end of the game. Now, is that game flow more than, they skunked Dallas for the better part of 3 quarters. But it's definitely, I think the thing that was so great about, it's not just the coordinator change. Remember, they lost Patrick Queen in Baltimore. They lost Geno Stone in Baltimore. They lost Jadeveon Clowney in Baltimore. So there's multiple pieces that are off of that defense. And their pass rush right now is Dak or quarterback can go make plays with his feet. They got to find a middle ground better. So, I think his pocket movement and his ability to extend, again, will be a conversation. They're not nearly as detailed as they were last year with their simulated pressures. They're bringing all those guys up at the line of scrimmage, like who's the blitzer, who's not. So they're still lacking in some of that connection that made them so difficult last year to prepare for.
Dan, before we let you go, I just have one small favor to ask. When you show up on Get Up or you show up on First Take, I need you to Buffalo last night.
Oh, I did. Yeah, I did. My kids loved it. My kids were like, "My gosh, Dad, he had your face on his shirt." So that was pretty cool, man. That place is awesome. I love going to Buffalo. I love going to that stadium. I love going around those people. I feel like I'm a lot more like those people than in some other areas that I'm a part of. So, yeah, that was cool, man. That was very humbling.
Yeah, and Twitter and of course social media was quick to point out exactly where he was standing, just out the end line.
Which
is Orlovsky territory.
Wow,
Love you, man.
Conveniently placed.
That's right. Love you, man. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you guys.
All right, that's Dan Orlovsky, ESPN NFL analyst, joining us. And as we said, his appearances on One Bills Live, presented by Caesars Sportsbook, an official mobile sports betting partner of the Buffalo Bills. We do have some time here, so we want to get back to the phones at 803-0550, 1-888-550-2550, and to the people that have been waiting patiently, like Diane out in Clarence. What do you got for us, Diane? You're on One Bills Live.
Hey guys, thanks for taking my call. I first want to say that game last night to me was epic. I don't know if you caught the interview with Deion Dawkins after how he was talking about protecting Josh, not letting anybody get to him. Well, I don't know if you caught that James Cook hit. I think it was our second possession in the first quarter. James Cook lampasted one of the Jaguars who was very close to sacking Josh. And I think it's those little things. We don't need the big player names. I think it's all the little things that come together that are going to make this team what they are. That Hamlin interception, Von Miller sack, just was the most unbelievable thing to see last night. Great coverage for the Bills on Monday Night Football. And Josh with his MVP, Steve, you were talking about it before. I don't even get this Lamar Jackson last year. If people don't know who Josh Allen is, then they've been having their head in the sand for the last 5 years. And lastly, coaches.
Where's that orange lighter that was on the floor?
Everybody should be so grateful
You got
for the
it?
coaching staff that we have, because it's not going to be the big names that take us.
It was
It's gonna
right
be
under the
all these
couch.
guys
See it?
that contribute each.
The team bonding. The culture is something that's the work ethic, the practice schedule, the leadership, the
Commitment to
coaching,
one another.
the commitment, and the team stuff is how much. And when the team stuff is each guy individually saying, "Man, I am not going to be the guy that lets these guys down. I want to come through for these guys." It's two different things, subtly different.
My girlfriend.
But when you have all that stuff working, at the bottom of the floor of how bad you play, it gets raised a long way now. So even on your bad days, you can beat a good team.
Let's squeeze Ryan in Toronto in here before the break. Ryan, what do you got for us? You're on One Bills Live.
Chris, Steve, love the show. Great win for the Bills. Chris, you touched on Sugar Rush Josh. The reason why you don't see that anymore, I think, has to go a lot of credit, or most of it, to Joe Brady. That man came in, took over the offense when they were 5-5 last year after Denver, and this man is being 9-1 in the regular season so far. And this season, no INTs, no turnovers.
Mark said Steve's ignoring me.
Joe Brady, and you know what? He deserves it, man.
That he's home.
Yeah, I think you're right about that, Ryan. And yes, you are correct. Bills were 6-6, not 5-5. They were 6-6 last year, and he made them go 6-1 down the stretch. And the loss was, or actually no, he's right, 5-5, because they had a win to go 6-5, then lost to Philly 6-6. That's his only loss since he's been an offensive coordinator.
Think about the loss. Think about that loss. It was to Philly after they were headed to the Super Bowl.
Year after they went to the Super Bowl,
they lost to them in their building in a rainstorm in overtime after a 59-yard kick. Sent it to overtime.
Yeah.
The Bills were
kick of the year.
It's the longest we've been straight.
Yes, Joe.
Buffalo Bills Radio.
WGR Sports Radio 550.
Talking about mental health isn't always easy. Finding care should be. Meet Talkiatry. They offer virtual in-network psychiatry to treat the most common mental health conditions like depression, anxiety, OCD, and trauma. Within a week, they can match you with a doctor who takes insurance and takes the time to listen. Get started at talkiatry.com/start.
And we are joined now by Bills team reporter Maddie Glad, who we are happy to see again.
Mark hates her.
Maddie
Glad. Mark hates her. He said she just repeats.
The party started early, as I said earlier, Maddie, and it went late.
It was a party at Highmark Stadium last night. Our first award that we're giving out, Real Recognize Real. You know why? Because 4-time NBA champion and MVP LeBron James tweets out during the game, "I really like watching Josh Allen play football." Well, everyone in Highmark Stadium loved watching Allen play football on Monday night. Real Recognize Real, from greatness to greatness. Allen couldn't have been stopped by a Mack truck last night. 4 touchdown passes, 247 passing yards in the first half. He had some beautiful passes as well. After 7 years of watching him, it still doesn't get old. Watching some of the ball placement on some of his throws last night, his Ty Johnson touchdown pass really sticks out to me. He's moving backwards as he chucks the ball 16 yards down the field and places it perfectly over linebacker Chad Muma. Goes right into the hands of Johnson. That's when the Bills went up 34-3. He's the first quarterback in NFL history to throw for 4 touchdowns, have no turnovers, take no sacks, complete 75% of his passes, and lead his team in rushing yards in the same game per Opta stats. That is
Come on,
one
Shiloh.
clean game from QB1.
Yeah, that's a clean game to be sure.
Put some mayonnaise in here.
I think I've been saying this,
Don't
Maddie.
look that bad.
The thing that looks different about it, because we've seen flashes of this before, right?
What do you want?
He's had
You're such a mooch.
4 touchdown game this season in week 1. The thing that's
Yeah,
hitting
follow
us
daddy.
now, like last week against
Papa's not giving you nothing.
against
I ain't eaten anything all day yet.
it just
Better leave me alone.
I mean, they never have to, I mean, in that first half, they were in the third down a couple of times, and Josh would just run, he would like run for 12 on a 3rd and 9.
Draw.
It was just one thing after another. Everything that the Jaguars did, the Bills had not just an answer, but it's like, oh yeah, we got that.
And they
You
go
know,
for
it's
4th
just-
downs and they convert. This team is 5 of 5 on 4th downs.
How many tomatoes
To start
we
the
got
season,
left?
that's
Just
the
one?
best in the NFL. The next team is the Kansas City Chiefs.
You
They're 3
get
for 3.
shit.
Okay.
Pretty cool.
Poetic Justice is next on the award list.
Poetic Justice, that's going to safety DeMar Hamlin, because Monday Night Football holds a lot of meaning for Hamlin. On
What,
Monday
a
night,
tomato?
week 17 of the 2022
Yeah, that would be
season,
nice.
Hamlin suffered a cardiac arrest episode that put his future in doubt, not just as a football player, but as a human. Monday Night Football now holds a new meaning to DeMar Hamlin. He recorded his first career interception on Monday night. That is just poetic justice. The best part was watching him celebrate with all of his teammates on the sidelines. They are the guys who saw all the hard work that went into making the comeback. Less than 2 years after the cardiac arrest episode, Hamlin is starting and making plays. We love that for you three. We are so happy and excited to see you go out there and not just play, but flourish in it.
Yeah, 10 tackles last week. I think he had another 8 yesterday. He's been right in the middle of it. And I think the most gratifying thing for us to see is he's back to the player that he was, because he was a very physical player, put his body at risk, and I think we all wondered if he was going to be able to mentally wrap his head around being that player again. And I think we're seeing evidence of that this year, after kind of using last year as a get back year, if you will. So just really cool to see.
Another one is the next one is the Steel Curtain Award. Interesting. Go ahead.
Steel Curtain is going to our offensive line. You know, they're a huge part of the offense's success to start the season. The offensive line doesn't always get kudos or shout outs, but they deserve it after that huge victory against the Jaguars. They were the Steel Curtain for Josh Allen and the running backs. No sacks. And the Bills rushed for 122 yards. The Jags have 3 first rounders on the defensive line. Trayvon Walker, Josh Hines Allen, Eric Armstead. The previous 2 matchups against the Jags, the Bills had a hard time moving the ball, averaging just 50 rushing yards per game. And Hines Allen would get after Josh Allen. That was not the case last night. Hines Allen had 1 pressure on like 26 pass rushes. Right tackle Spencer Brown did not allow a single pressure on 35 pass blocking snaps. His 3rd straight game without allowing a pressure. The offensive line deserves their flowers.
And I think, they are getting the ball out quicker too. That always is time to an offensive line to get it away from them. But I think what we're seeing offensively and defensively is kind of it's why it makes it look so easy.
Yeah, I mean, they're scoring 30 plus points a game. Last night it was 40 plus, and they're
going to work right to the winner, right?
You get the idea. It looks exactly like it's supposed to. I mean, and it never does that in the NFL. You got NFL players.
Yeah, other guys trying.
Yeah, they're trying to do everything they can to get in your way, and the Bills' offense is working just exactly like you envision it, which it's rare to go through a stretch like that, let alone 3 weeks of it.
All right, and that is a perfect segue to the In His Bag Award.
Offensive coordinator Joe Brady was in his bag last night. 34 points in the first half. Stop playing with us, Joe Brady. It was so fun to watch. He was dishing it out to everyone in his play calling. Everybody got a slice of the pizza last night. 6 different players have a touchdown. That's the third time that's happened in team history. 10 different players catch a pass from Josh Allen. That's the 10th time that's happened in team history. His calls and his quarterback shredded, and I mean shredded, Jacksonville's man defense. They tried zone for like a play, but the Bills scored on them. And they said, all right, we'll just go back to man defense. That is the ultimate compliment. It is hard to win against teams who successfully can find different options on the field from game to game.
Yeah.
We go from that to the young guns.
The young guns, that's our rookies for making plays against the Jags. They showed out on Monday Night Football. How about Keon Coleman, our wide receiver, having his first NFL touchdown? He was in the game for like 5 plays and caught a touchdown pass. The dude is an athlete. And then Davis puts the cherry on top with his first NFL touchdown to make it a 37-point victory over the Jacksonville Jaguars. Great to see him involved in things as well. And then the rookie defensive end, Javon Solomon, had a strip sack fumble. Then defensive end Casey Toohill recovers it. The Bills scored points off of that. In fact, they scored 14 points off of forced takeaways, forced turnovers against the Jaguars. It's great to see the production that we're getting out of the rookies this early in the season.
Yeah, it's happening on both sides of the ball, but you got a special award for the Bills defense.
Bills defense, we've talked so much about the offense in this game because they put up 47 points against the Jaguars, but the defense also limited them to just 10 points. They need to get some love for their part that they played in Monday's victory. 5 sacks, 2 takeaways. The Bills scored 14 points off of those takeaways. The defense held the Jaguars to 3.5 yards per play. That is a low number. They were just 2 of 13 on third down. It's crazy how successful they were at making life so hard for the Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence had just 59 passing yards in the first half. They were mean and they were nasty. Shout out to Bale Inspector, too, who had his first start in the regular season at no linebacker. It wasn't too big for him.
His former Clemson teammates, Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne, tour. And you mentioned, Maddie, the points off turnovers in the last 2 weeks. 35 points for the Bills off of takeaways. 21 against Miami, 14 last night. So really impressive. All right, the final award. 100%.
100%. I gave it out last week. We're going to keep this going as long as he keeps catching every single ball thrown his way. To start the season, Khalil Shakir has been targeted 14 times. He's caught every single one of those targets. That's 100% catch rate. And it's not just to start the season. Let's go back to last year. In the last 6 regular season games, dating back to week 16, Khalil Shakir has caught every single one of his targets. 27 targets, 27 catches. He does not miss. Josh Allen, after the game, called Shakir a real football player. You know, he's a football player who catches absolutely everything.
He's a vacuum cleaner.
Yeah,
that's what I would call him. Just the ball just sticks to him.
Elite hands.
Yeah, he's quickly going to become legendary if this continues any further. That's awesome to see.
Which is crazy because you don't often see it with receivers of smaller stature. It's usually the big guys with the giant mitts. You know, like a DeAndre Hopkins who has 12-inch hands.
Right.
It's one thing to catch everything, but it's another thing to catch everything and then get yards after catch. He's doing both of those things to start the season.
I'm going to be very interested to see where the Bills rank in yards after catch this week. I believe last week when I looked it up, they were 12th in the league. I think they're going to be a little bit higher after what we saw last night. Maddie, thanks as always for the Maddie Awards. Hopefully you're back here next Monday for another edition. Let's make it 4 in a row. Maddie Awards presented as always by Energy Mark, official energy supplier to the Buffalo Bills. Got to take a break here, back with one final segment. We'll try to squeeze in a call here on a Buffalo Football Tuesday on One Bills Live. Stay with us.
WGR Sports Radio
That
550.
wasn't a bad sandwich,
Golden
huh?
don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors.
We got a
of the
ham
1%.
sandwich in there
Robin
yet,
Hood
too.
allows the resourceful individual to earn the very liberal rate